A home is supposed to be the safest place in the world, but for Sarah and James, their attic became something else entirely. At first, it was little things. Food missing, lights left on, doors left cracked open when they swore they'd shut them. They blamed each other, until the noises started. Soft footsteps above their heads in the middle of the night. James pulled down the attic ladder one morning, determined to prove it was just mice. But the smell hit them first, stale, sour, like sweat and candle smoke. In the corner, a sleeping bag, empty food wrappers, half-burnt candles, and a notebook. Sarah flipped it open, her voice trembling as she read. Monday, she wore the blue sweater. He left at 7:42 a.m. She ate eggs. Tuesday, they fought about bills. He slammed the door. She cried. Wednesday, she showered at 9:18. I watched, page after page, their private lives written down by a stranger. And the very last entry read, Tonight, I come down. The police searched. The sleeping bag was still warm. The attic window, wide open. He had been there, living above them, watching, for 3 months. And to this day, Sarah swears she can feel eyes on her when the house goes quiet. Silence is supposed to be peace, but in Emily's house, silence was camouflage. Emily was 21, deaf since birth, and fiercely independent. The little rental near campus wasn't much. Warped floorboards, a stubborn front door, a living room that smelled faintly of pine cleaner and dust. But it was hers. Her routine lived in the quiet. Morning tea, signing to herself in the mirror to rehearse presentations. Long nights studying with the soft glow of a desk lamp. The first wrong thing was small. Cereal disappearing faster than she remembered. Then the detergent bottle, lighter, even though she hadn't done a load. A chair pulled half a foot away from the table. She told herself she was distracted. Finals, stress. She texted friends. LOL, my ghost's a neat freak. And yet, when she locked up each night, a cold ripple ran over her skin, the kind you feel. Not here. One Friday, she set up a cheap camera facing the living room, lens toward the hall closet. She couldn't hear a bump in the night, so she'd watch it in the morning. The footage began like nothing. She watched herself studying. Tea steaming by her elbow, her pen tapping. At 2:13 a.m., the closet door eased open. No squeak, no slam, just a widening slice of black. A man unfolded from the darkness, pale, dirty, eyes sunk deep in shadow. He stood behind her chair, still as furniture. Emily leaned forward in the video, scribbling notes. The man leaned too, his face inches above her hair. You could see his breath fog in the winter air, drifting toward her neck. 2 minutes. 3. He lifted a hand, hovered, and then withdrew. Slowly, he slid back inside the closet. The door closed until the latch kissed wood. Emily froze at her laptop, the image pausing on her own unaware back. She rewound, watched again. Her fingers shook so badly she dropped her phone. She dialed anyway. Friends arrived, mouths open, eyes wide. One whispering, "Call the police. Now." Officers checked the closet. Behind a flimsy shelf was a cutout, a crawlspace threading the studs of the house. Inside, a bedroll, food wrappers, a jug of water, and little holes drilled at shoulder height. Peepholes. Into the living room, the kitchen, the bedroom. They didn't find the man that night. The bathroom window at the back stood open to the alley. Screen sliced. Over the next week, Emily slept at a friend's. Police canvassed, patrol cars circling like worried sharks. But what lingered wasn't the open window. It was the other footage. She clicked through nights she hadn't watched yet. At 3:41 a.m. on Tuesday, the man crept to her bedside. His fingers grazed a strand of hair across her pillow, so lightly it barely moved. Wednesday, he stood in the doorway, head cocked, watching the slow rise and fall of her breathing for 6 minutes, 8, 10. Thursday, he ate an apple in her kitchen, chewing with his mouth open, staring down the hall toward her room as if listening to a song only he could hear. When Emily gave police the clips, an officer turned away to wipe his eyes. "It's not the sounds," he said softly. "It's the time he took." Neighbors reported seeing someone sleeping under the back porch of a vacant duplex, but by the time officers arrived, the bedding was gone. They never caught him. Emily moved. New locks, new city. But sometimes she wakes before dawn, heart pounding, and feels breath at the back of her neck. She rolls over quickly and finds no one there. Of course there isn't. All she has now is silence, and silence is the perfect cover. Some squatters hide, others stake a claim. Marcus had been away 3 weeks, helping his sister after surgery. He came home late, tired, arms full of groceries, the house stale from being closed. He turned on the kitchen light, and a roach skittered across the counter. "Great," he muttered. "City living." He set the bags down and headed for the fuse box in the basement to check a flickering light. The basement door wouldn't open, not stuck, not jammed. It resisted, with the tug of a chain from the inside. Marcus frowned. He pressed his ear to the wood. He heard nothing, only the muted cold from below. "Hello?" Silence. He went to the shed, grabbed a crowbar, and returned. The first pry tore the strike plate. The second ripped screws free in a shower of splinters. The third swung the door open. Stale heat rolled up the stairs. 2 stained mattresses lay on the concrete, a camp stove, empty bottles, a pile of clothes arranged into crude walls for privacy. "Yo," Marcus began, and a shape burst from behind the furnace. A bottle flashed at his face. He threw up his forearm. Glass carved a screaming line from wrist to elbow. He stumbled back, boots skidding on grit, and the attacker lunged again. A gaunt man with frantic eyes and a tattoo scabbed over in ink. Another figure stirred near the mattresses. Someone else rising. Both of them between Marcus and the stairs. "Get out of my house," Marcus said through teeth. The man laughed, a raw, dry sound. "Our house!" They rushed. Marcus swung the crowbar. The clang against the bottle rang like a bell. Shards exploded across the concrete. The second squatter grabbed his jacket, tried to pull him down the steps. They fell together, a tumble of knees and elbows, the world a blur of dust and pain. Adrenaline is a narrow tunnel. Marcus saw one thing: the small window at the top of the stairwell, the square of night beyond the glass. He drove his shoulder into the first man, twisted free, bolted up, and slammed the door. He dragged the refrigerator across the kitchen tile with one good arm, shoving it against the frame as fists pounded from the other side. Neighbors woke to the sound of sirens. Police flooded the stairwell, guns drawn, voices sharp and overlapping. The squatters didn't surrender easy. One tried the window well, got stuck like a beetle, screaming curses. The other thrashed at an officer with a bent fork he'd sharpened to a point. When it was over, zip ties bit wrists, and the kitchen smelled of sweat and fear. Background checks came back fast and ugly. Warrants, a string of armed robberies. Marcus's basement wasn't a hideout. It was a hub. "Another day," an officer said quietly, looking at Marcus's bandaged arm. "And this would be a different call." Marcus replaced the door with steel. He moved his bed upstairs where the streetlights painted the ceiling with a safer kind of glow. But sometimes he wakes to the sound of a bottle softly turning on concrete, a sound he doesn't hear so much as remember. He tells himself it's just the refrigerator cycling. Then, he moves it 2 more inches against the door. Grief leaves rooms open, even when the doors are shut. Tom had lived alone since Claire died. The house was full of echoes that winter. Her perfume lingered in the bedroom curtains, the ghost of floral notes every time he opened the window. He kept telling himself it was memory. Memory is stubborn. Small things vanished, a sweater, a mug, 2 slices of bread he swore he hadn't eaten. He blamed himself, the fog of grief, the soft white noise of days that drifted together. But one morning, he woke to a shape that wasn't memory at all. Bare feet, 2 shadows beneath his closet door. He sat up so fast the room swam. The feet didn't move. They just were, the way a spider is suddenly there on a wall. He called 911 without taking his eyes off the crack of light under the door. He told the dispatcher he thought someone might be in his house. His own voice sounded far away, like a neighbor he didn't know well. Police arrived quiet, lights off, boots soft on carpet. "Sir, step back, please." 2 officers flanked the door, one hand on the knob, the other adjusting a flashlight. The door swung. In the dark, crouched low among Tom's hanging shirts, was a woman. Gaunt, hair ropey, eyes huge and wet. She trembled like a cornered dog. "Ma'am, hands where we can see them." She obeyed, palms up, thin wrists quivering. A smell came out of the closet then, sour and sweet all at once. Sweat, cheap perfume, something rotting and floral tangled together. They let her out. Behind the shoe rack was a hole cut into the drywall, a cavity carved between studs. Inside, a nest of blankets, water bottles, snack wrappers, and a small stack of Polaroids wrapped in a rubber band. Tom didn't want to touch them, but an officer did. The first photo was of Tom at the kitchen table, head bowed over a bowl of soup. The second, Tom asleep, mouth slightly open, a paperback folded on his chest. The third, Tom staring out the window, lost in a thought he didn't remember having. Dozens more, different times, different angles, always close, taken from the doorway, from the hallway, from just inside the closet at night. "How long?" Tom asked. His voice broke on the second word. The officer glanced at the nest. "Months, at least." They found a diary, pages cramped with tiny handwriting, entries listing Tom's routines, the times he showered, the nights he cried in the bathroom with the fan on, the brand of soap he used because it made the room smell like someone he missed. He closed the notebook before the next line could stick. The woman didn't fight when they led her away. She looked around the house like a tourist leaving a museum, eyes grazing the couch, the lamp, the photo of Claire framed on the mantel. Just before the door closed on the patrol car, she whispered something Tom didn't catch. He replaced the bedroom door. He changed the locks. He gave away the shirts that had been her hiding place. But when spring came and the curtains puffed with open windows, the same perfume drifted in. He shut them quickly. He told himself it was memory again. Memory, and the shape of 2 feet, standing in the dark behind a door. Sometimes the walls don't keep danger out, they keep it in. The Martins moved into the old Oregon farmhouse in August, the kind of place that looks good at sunset and haunted in the morning. Their dog, Moose, loved it immediately. He patrolled the hall at night like a furry security guard, growling at the same corner by the linen closet every night at 2 a.m. on the dot. They joked about ghosts. Then the drafts began, cold air licking ankles even with every window sealed. Drywall dust appeared along baseboards like someone had dragged a fingertip there. One Saturday, Sam Martin pressed his palm to the wall by the closet and felt a breeze he couldn't explain. He cut a small square of drywall. Behind it, darkness breathed. His flashlight found a low, narrow crawlspace running the length of the hall, the beam shimmering on a silver river of insulation. Then it hit a shape, a mattress, a lantern. Cans stacked like solemn little soldiers, the smell of old sweat and pennies. "Hello?" he called, and the lantern rolled softly, as if something had bumped it on the other side. They called the sheriff. Deputies arrived, cautious, one going to the back entrance of the crawlspace by the utility room, the other crouching with Sam at the hall cutout. "On three," someone whispered. "1, 2, 3. A face lunged into the light, gray with dust, eyes wide as nickels. A hand shot out, grasping with nails bitten to the quick. A kitchen knife clutched white knuckle tight. The deputy by the utility room dragged the man's ankles. The one at the hallway grabbed his wrist, the knife scraping sparks off the flashlight bezel. The man screamed like a kettle boiling over. "Don't kick me out. This is my house too. I live here. I live here." When they finally pulled him free, he was all elbows and noise. They zip-tied his wrists. Sam's wife, Lena, stood with Moose, the dog shaking, teeth bared at a corner of wall where a circle of holes stared back at them like a cluster of eyes. Peepholes, half a dozen drilled through plaster at different heights. One at adult eye level, one at a child's, one low, at dog height. The man had been watching them watch him. They searched his nest, a notebook with maps of the house drawn from memory, little arrows showing when the children left for school, when Lena took laundry to the mudroom, when Sam fell asleep on the couch. The pages were greasy at the corners, as if he'd turned them with hungry fingers. "How long?" Sam asked, voice thin. "Long enough to learn your schedule," a deputy said. That night, the Martins slept at a hotel. In the dark, Sam found his hand tracing imaginary squares on the wall, making sure there was nothing behind them. When he finally drifted off, he dreamed the house inhaled. He woke to the air conditioning turning on, but for a moment, it felt like the walls were breathing again. If you think it's the pipes, look again. Danielle worked double shifts and fell into bed like a dropped stone. Her apartment was the top floor of an old building in Chicago, warm in summer, thin-walled in winter. A place where the radiator sighed and the neighbors argued in two languages and nobody was surprised by footsteps in the night. But these weren't neighbors. These were above neighbors. It started as scratching, then dragging, then a slow, measured tread that crossed from the kitchen to the bedroom at 3:12 a.m. like clockwork. Maintenance checked. "No one up there," the super said, thumbing through a ring of keys. "Roof only." He shrugged. "Buildings talk." One night the sound grew so heavy that Danielle sat up in bed. She held her breath. The tread stopped overhead. Silence. Dense as wool. Plaster dust fell onto the comforter like ash. She looked up. A circle puckered in the ceiling. Cracks spidered outward. Then, the plaster gave. A piece dropped, hit the mattress with a chalky thud. Behind the hole, a dark oval, and within it, a pale, dirty face staring down through insulation, eyes wide with surprise, as if she had invaded his room. Danielle screamed and rolled off the bed. The face vanished. She grabbed her phone and ran into the hall as more plaster rained down like snow. Police found the hatch to the roof pried open, Between the ceiling joists lay a nest of blankets, food wrappers, a filthy pillow flattened to the shape of a skull. Footprints tracked dust from one end of the apartment to the other, lines where a body had slid on beams to travel silently above her life. They pulled him out through the hatch, a man gaunt and gray with building dust. In his bundle they found knives, not kitchen knives, not new, but a collection gathered like trophies. A box cutter stained brown at the hinge, a paring knife with a chipped handle, a fillet knife honed thin as a whisper. He hissed as they cuffed him. "Don't take me away. The night's loud out there. It's quiet in here. I like the quiet." The super changed the locks. The landlord promised to fix the ceiling as soon as possible. Danielle slept on a friend's couch a week, then two. When she went back to pack, she stood beneath the patch circle and thought she heard something again. Not footsteps, not dragging, just the faintest tap, like a fingernail on wood. She told herself it was the building. Buildings talk, but sometimes they answer.